Hello, and welcome to the Thyroid Warrior podcast. I'm Ebony, and I'm here as your wellness facilitator. I'm going to be sharing my experiences in managing Hashimoto's disease, and I really hope that it'll help you on your personal journey. Keep in mind, however, this does not substitute as medical advice. It is only for your information and motivational purposes only. Now, let's get started. Hello, friends. This is going to be a very interesting series/season because I lost my best friend. My dad died about a month ago now, and my world has completely turned upside down. And I have learned so much in this short amount of time. And I really do think that now that I am slightly sort of kind of past the initial grief, more so shock, not really grief. Grief is going to be a constant thing. I have learned that there are so many things that happen throughout this process that come up that are very surprising that you don't really think about. And a lot of times we don't want to talk about it, obviously, because it's painful, but it is also very necessary. And I feel like before I was really and truly an advocate for navigating the healthcare system and really and truly thinking through how all of these systems come together that may or may not work for us, it's become blatantly clear to me that there's so much more than what meets the eye when it comes to everything. So if you are someone who is currently experiencing this or has recently gone through this, my condolences to you, because this absolutely positively sucks. And I am realizing now that everything reminds me of him. But I also take great joy and comfort in that, because I realize how much of an impact this man has had on my life. And I will continue to share his legacy by becoming the best version of myself possible, and by doing things my way, and by not being afraid to share my voice, to share my truth, and to recognize that this information needs to be shared. So definitely keep this series in your back pocket, because at some point it is going to be really important to start these conversations. And one of the biggest things that I realized was, we're going to start from a healthcare perspective and not necessarily going into the details of what happened with him, but the information that I have put in my health journal, for example, I used absolutely every aspect of it throughout this time. And here are some key things that are very important for you to ensure that you have documented and written down in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And that is obviously your medical history. And you're going to want a short version of that, because whenever you present at a hospital, a healthcare clinic, or any instance where there are providers taking care of you, you always want to be able to give the high level details. And this is something that I realized walking through things with my mom that really and truly, forgive my language, but really pissed me off. Because on the one hand, providers are stressed, they don't have a lot of time, they have to get in and out. But at the same time, I was trying very hard not to get kicked out during some of her visits because I noticed that some of the providers made her feel like her health was her fault in terms of why she wasn't feeling well. And the way that the provider spoke to her was disgusting. And even as I was in the room with her, I was not acknowledged in any way, shape, form, or fashion. A lot of times those providers turned their backs towards me. And it wasn't until my mom said, "That is my daughter, and she has been the one helping me with my health," did they then turn to acknowledge me, to include me in the conversation. And that is unacceptable. So when you or a loved one are going to your appointment, it is very important to let the front desk know, as well as letting your provider know who that other person is and what relationship they play in your care. And I won't even get into other dynamics of why that is important, but particularly when you have blended families of sorts, it is very important to make sure that it is established who's who. When it comes to having providers that are less than ideal when it comes to bedside manner, one of the things I did in a very polite way was let the providers know, I understand that you may not have a lot of time to go in detail, but what resources do you have available that I can go over with my mom that will help to articulate some of the things that you are unable to provide in this visit? Because I am not sure that her care goals were met during this visit because of the lack of time given to providing an adequate explanation of what is going on with her care. Now, I am very comfortable, unfortunately, at this point with being labeled. But when it comes to my family, the bear in me will come out, and I will ensure that they are taken care of, because I constantly go back to my experiences during my initial diagnosis, and there was so much inappropriateness when it came to interacting with my care providers, and I made sure that they knew. And I also filed grievances with the healthcare centers. So if you feel as though things are really, really bad, that is an option to you. There are patient advocates available to you. There are managers of the clinics. There are people above them. There are patient and family-centered design teams that are specific to working on the design and workflows in many cases of what happens when it comes to how patients present at the hospital. So there are a plethora of pathways to be able to get to that information that most of us never know about. So we will be discussing that throughout this series, and I will be sharing with you the who's who of who to talk to, if that makes sense. So that was the first thing. But you also want to make sure that someone else that you trust that is not a family member knows and understands what's going on with you or your loved one, because sometimes it can be very challenging because we all handle medical information differently. We all handle stress and grief differently. So when it comes to what is happening with you, it's very important to make sure you have a support system so that if and when you have people in your immediate circle that do not have the capacity to help you in the way that you need, that you have other people around you who are going to be available to be of assistance to you. That is something that is so incredibly important because I watched so many families be confused or just be utterly and completely exhausted, but they had no one else that they could depend on. And that literally broke my heart throughout the entire process because it is exhausting. Having yourself or a loved one be sick is awful. It's taxing. It is something that I would not wish on my worst enemy. And those things are very, very difficult to work through as well. And I think for this episode, I want to end on begging you, urging you to have not only your medical information set up, but also your healthcare proxy, your patient portal proxy, to ensure that you have a living will, your advance directives, and all of the things pertinent to you as the individual in the event that you are no longer able to make medical decisions for yourself. I cannot stress enough how important that is and how much that reduces conflict in your immediate family circle. When you do not have those things written down, when you do not have those conversations, when that person is capable of making those decisions, it can be very, very challenging in the event that something goes horribly wrong. And you want to make sure that multiple people know your wishes, including people in your family, but also your support system. So those are the highlights that I want to touch on for this first episode in this series. But just know that we are going to be getting in the nitty-gritty of things in terms of just talking through this, because we have quite a few episodes to go through when it comes to grief, your health status, why healthcare proxies are important, all of the things that no one ever wants to talk about, the conflict, why it's important to have people around you after that initial week to 2 weeks after someone passes, or the ongoing struggle. And I don't think I'm ever going to ask anyone, what do you need when a loved one passes away or they're going through something really, really challenging, because it also puts the responsibility on them to know what they need when they have absolutely no idea. And it's not to say that you're a bad person if you've ever done it. I've done it plenty of times. But now that I have been in that position where I have no idea what I need, I really appreciate it when people sent food or sent gift cards so that I can order stuff, because I didn't have an appetite. I couldn't even think straight. And one of the things that I also recognized was the employer perspective of all of this as well. And I'm not quite sure how we as people are expected to just jump right back into working, depending on what your bereavement policies are at your workplace after 1 to 3 days. I don't understand how that's possible. But one thing that I have been doing is setting very clear boundaries and really and truly communicating what I can and cannot do particularly from the perspective of I adore you, I enjoy this team, but the happy-go-lucky, bubbly, excited Ebony has left the building, and right now, Clear is kind. And I need you to be direct and succinct with me in terms of what questions you're asking me and what your needs are, because I'm not able to operate in nuance at this time. My brain is literally in survival mode right now, and I'm not going to be able to pick up on the subtleties right now that I normally can pick up on when it comes to you expressing your needs to me. So I need you to be able to verbalize that. And that is also true for everyone in my life at this moment. So that is where we're going. And I would really, really love it if you just sent me a note and let me know how you feel about this, if you've gone through it before, if you do have questions about the end of life planning process, about everything that I'm talking about. You can definitely email hello@joyfulebony.com, and I would love to have a conversation with you. I will be having a kindness and gratitude challenge starting on May 22nd. And the reason for that is to be able to honor where I am and focusing on the fact that I don't have to get it all done. So if you are interested in signing up for that, you can head to joyfulebony.com/kindness, and I would absolutely love to have you. And we're really going to be talking about how Clear is kind, to be honest with you. And I'm going to be doing a couple of activities throughout that week, nothing high commitment level, so to speak, but just things to kind of get your mind going in terms of what that could potentially look like for you, and what that has been for myself, and how to navigate that. So again, it is joyfulebony.com/kindness, and I hope that you can be happy, be whole, and be well. Take care. Okay, thyroid warriors, get out there and take things one step at a time. Remember, reflect on your triumphs, know that you are doing your best, and do what you need to do in order to be well. I would absolutely love it if you subscribe to this podcast and share this episode with a friend. And don't forget, leave me a review. I read those and try very hard to improve the show based upon your feedback. So I'd love to hear from you. And with that, be happy, be whole, and be well. Take care.